All right, we're going to sing a little bit. Give me just a minute. You know, the thing about business meeting nights is you don't ever know how much to plan for. So we're just going to sing this one song tonight and then turn it over to Brother Bobby. But we're going to sing all the verses of this one, so that'll work all right. I'm pressing on the outward way, near I'm praying every day, to pray as I outward bound. Lord, let my feet on higher ground. Lord, let me all that I desire, by faith on heaven's table land. All I have laid that I have found. Lord, let my feet on higher ground. My heart has known its time to stay, way down sunrise and peace to say, till Sunday dwell when guns abound. My prayer, my aim is higher ground. Lord, lift me up and let me stand, by faith on heaven's table land. All I have laid that I have found. Lord, let my feet on higher ground. I want to live around the world, though Satan's joys set me around. For faith is called the trumpet sound, the song of saints on higher ground. Lord, lift me up and let me stand, by faith on heaven's table land. All I have laid that I have found. Lord, let my feet on higher ground. I want to sail the utmost fire, and catch a gleam of glory bright. But still no breakthrough have I found. Lord, lead me on to higher ground. Lord, lift me up and let me stand, by faith on heaven's table land. All I have laid that I have found. Lord, let my feet on higher ground. Thank you for your singing tonight, and I'm going to continue with an old hymn that I actually really love. This is probably my favorite older hymn. All hail now. Sorry, I started too late. All hail now, Lord Jesus' name. Let angels prostrate fall. Bring forth the royal light of heaven, and crown him Lord of all.
told me one time, they said, I sure do like your business meeting. We began, we'd end, and we didn't have a whole lot in between. So. Y'all are probably going to have to forgive me a little bit tonight. When we go through these churches, now I promise you, I'm going to give you some facts. It's not because I lived during them, okay? But I'm going to give you some facts, but most of those facts I get off of internet or something such as that, okay? And y'all found out this morning I don't follow notes well, okay? I taught math for a living. You understand? I mean, that's what I did. I wrote on the board and I looked at them, and when I went into the classroom, I very seldom ever looked at anything else. So I just never have learned to follow notes in that. But I'm going to have to a little bit tonight, okay, in this, because I really don't know any other way of doing this. We're going to begin in the 8th verse of the 2nd chapter with the second, really, church that is there. And this is a church that is called Symrna. Now, Symrna got his name because they produced myrrh. I hope I pronounced that right, okay, in there. And myrrh was one of the gifts that was brought to Jesus. You remember when the 3 wise men came? There was myrrh, frankincense, and gold, okay? Every one of them pointed to what Jesus was going to be. Myrrh represented really basically the death that he was going to die, okay? Frankincense represented his priesthood, and gold represented his kingship. Okay, so all of them represented or gave a nature of Jesus when they brought it, because there were probably other gifts that were given, but those were the ones that were designated to really point what this baby was going to be in life and what this baby was going to be even after he was resurrected from the grave. That was there, but they produced myrrh. Now, that made them very rich, okay? Because it was probably the only real burial substance that there was in that day, because it was, I think, some kind of a resin, if I'm not mistaken. I really did not get a clear picture on that, but they take it, they crush it, it's real bitter, but when they crush it, it gives off a sweet smelling aroma out of that, and they would ship a lot of it to Egypt because they embalmed their people over there. And so it was a very prosperous city of about 250,000 people right on the Aegean Sea. And it was a major seaport because there was Rome that was not that far away, and Greece that was not that far away. So a lot of the traffic that went into Asia or what else really came through Ephesus or came through Smyrna, and that, so it was a very, very rich city. It was a city that had been destroyed several times. One by the Romans when they came through, and then when Alexander the Great came through, he had some kind of a vision, and out of that vision he came and he rebuilt that city, really greater than what it was, and then storms would destroy it and they would rebuild the city, so it was rebuilt over and over and over again. This is kind of the nature of the city. Out of all the 7 churches that you will look at here, it is the only one that still exists. It is, if you look on your map of that region in there, it is a major city now called Izmir. If I hope I pronounced it, Izmir, I-Z-M-I-R. I hope I pronounced it. I may not have pronounced it right. I did spell it right because I did write it down. But it is the only one that basically exists now, and it is a very, from what I understand, or from what I read, a very religious city that is there now in that. Now, let's just read what it says about the churches are here, and then we'll just kind of go back and see what it says. And he says in verse 8, he says, unto the angel, again, the angel would be basically the pastor of the church, or ever what they had at that point, okay? This situation here was probably Polycarp, okay? Polycarp was a bishop, and he was a bishop from Smyrna. He was literally, well, I'll put it this way, in 160 AD, then he was to be burned at the stake. Now, you can go through and read all of that. I'm not going to make all of this detail, but what I did read amazed me, and if you'll allow me just to relate that just a little bit in there, that when they came to arrest him, and I think they went and hid him for a while or whatever, but they came and arrested him, then he just asked them, he said, come in, I'll feed you a meal. He fed the people a meal that came in to arrest him. He said, would you give me an hour to pray? And he went into a room separated from where they were, and they prayed, and they heard him pray, and they really almost did not arrest him and take him in. He was a man of about 86 years old at that point. And but they did arrest him. He went before the prostate. They condemned him to be burned at the stake. And so they carried him out, and they always tied people to the stakes. Polycarp said, no, just tie my hands, or they tied his hands. That's all they did. He stood there. They piled wood around him. They lit the fire to burn him at the stake, but the fire would not burn him. Literally, I read about 4 or 5 accounts. One said the wind kept blowing the fire away from him. Another simply said it didn't burn him in that. And finally, somebody just ran up and stabbed him with a knife and killed him at that point right there. But they asked him continuously, and I'll read you what he said because I did write that down. They asked him continually to deny Christ. And he had denied Christ or denied being a Christian, then they would have turned him loose and let him go free. But this is his famous statement that he says, 86 years have I served him, talking about Christ, and he has done me no wrong. How can I blaspheme my King and my Savior? And so they literally killed him at that point right there. I think at about 160 AD. He was probably appointed by the Apostle John to be the bishop of Smyrna, because John pastored in that area some also that is there. Now, that's probably more than you wanted to know, maybe more than you needed to know, but that was interesting to me, okay, and so I relate that to you. But the angel was probably Polycarp, okay, and he says right here, where am I? In verse 9, he says, I know your works, tribulation, poverty, and blasphemed by the Jews. 3 things right there that they talk about. In other words, when he says right here, he looks at him and he says, I know you. Now, we'll come back and give a description of Jesus in a minute, because that's very important, I think, in this right here, but we need to discuss a little bit about what the church is going to go through. Now, if this right here is, and I believe that each one of the 7 churches, I believe this, I couldn't prove it, neither can anyone else, but I believe that each one of the 7 churches represents a church era, okay? In other words, a time that the church went through in that period. And if this is the case, then they say that this one would go from 100 AD to about 260 AD, somewhere in that area. And the church went through a great persecution during that time. There were some Roman generals that literally came out to destroy Christians. I mean, that was their whole goal, to destroy Christians. We talked about in Sunday school this